My second topic today actually deals with the seminary stuff, and it comes from an announcement about Timothy Tennant. If you don't know who Timothy Tennant is, he was, still is, I think, the president of Asbury Theological Seminary in Kentucky. This is the number one, Asbury is the number one bogeyman seminary for the United Methodist Church. It trains more of the clergy for the United Methodist Church than any of the 13 United Methodist seminaries, and the clergy they generate are generally more effective but much more evangelical, which the United Methodist Church has hated. That's going to end now. The evangelical pastors coming out of Asbury generally can't operate within the UMC anymore. There are going to be exceptions, some very notable exceptions, but even so, Tennant has been at the front of Asbury for some time. He's done an excellent job in leadership. Asbury is clearly the top dog in evangelical Methodist training. They have a ton of professors there that are well known and liked by Global Methodist clergy and Methodist clergy more broadly. So I was surprised to see that he's leaving Asbury. Samford University's Beeson Divinity School is pleased to announce Timothy Tennant as its new Methodist Chair of Divinity. For the past 15 years, Tennant has been serving as president of Asbury Theological Seminary. Prior to 2009, he served 11 years as the professor of world missions and Indian studies at Gordon Conwell Theological Seminary. He has also extensive time teaching around the world, especially in India. Tennant began his ministry as a Methodist pastor in Georgia. In April 2024, Tennant served as the guest speaker for Beeson's World Christianity Focus Week and also appeared on the Beeson podcast. Quote, "I can think of no one better in the world than Tim Tennant to serve as Beeson's next Methodist Chair of Divinity," said Dean Douglas A. Sweeney. He is a world-class scholar in the fields of Christian mission and global Christianity. He's a leading Methodist churchman, beloved by Wesleyans and others worldwide, and his time at the helm of Beeson's sister school, Asbury, will serve us well as he leads our Wesleyan program to new heights. I don't really know what they mean by sister school. I don't know if there's any official relationship in place. There's so within the Global Methodist Church, there are many people who are kind of curious about higher education. Higher education has a great deal to do, seminaries, with the quality of the pastors you're going to get. And so are any of the 13 United Methodist seminaries listed among the seminaries that the Global Methodist Church likes? They do actually have, the GMC does actually have a list of seminaries that they approve of or like or enjoy working with. And one of them, and only one of them, I think, is a United Methodist institution. It's United Theological Seminary. This spreadsheet that I have, I just got, I think Walter Fenton sent me a list like 6 months ago. So odds are this list is not current of the institutions that they like and will work with and GMC leadership. So Asbury Theological Seminary is up at the top. They're in Wilmore, Kentucky. I didn't fill out this very well, but you see all the big names here that are affiliated with Asbury. You got Ashland, you got Beeson right here, which I don't know anything about Beeson other than they're in Birmingham, Alabama. You got Mid-America Christian University, but they only do like a very select amount of courses for a very select amount of people. Then you have Truett in Waco, Texas. United, that's the only United Methodist affiliated seminary that they're okay with. And that's almost certainly because David Watson is there and some other really solid people. But in general, they have all but separated from United Methodist Higher Education. Then there's Wesley Biblical Seminary. We'll talk about them in a second. And Wesley Seminary in Indiana. And they're another one that I don't really know about. So I'll flesh this out more so it's more helpful to us in the future. But in the meantime, I thought a lot of y'all would be interested in seeing that there's only a few institutions, and it matters a lot. In this conversation I had with David Roseberry, the current ACNA guy who I interviewed, and he gave some history on the Episcopal Church and why the ACNA needed to get formed, he was very clear that the seminaries played a big role in the destruction of that denomination. He talks a bit about his experience in seminary in California. And so he and I didn't even tell him that he and I connected a lot with just how bad our reaction was to that and how damaging seminary is. The only ones that make it through, many of those who make it through are severely damaged and permanently impacted by this encounter that they have with very faithless, dark institutions. So anyway, going back to this article on Tennant, Tennant will begin teaching classes in 2025. Beeson's Methodist chair was most recently held by Mac Pasquarello, who retired at the end of the 2024 academic year following 6 years of service to Beeson, during which he began the school's Wesleyan certificate program and oversaw the Robert Smith Jr. Preaching Institute. For Tennant, serving as Asbury's president for the past 15 years has been a wonderful chapter in my professional journey, he says, but he felt a deep desire to return to the classroom and, quote, spend the next stage of my life focused on mentoring the next generation of Christian leaders. I find that really admirable, to be honest with you. So I think there is a way that people start climbing the ladder and they lose track of what's going on with normal people. And I think it's great for people to spend some time up high, then come back down low to make sure that they have an integrated, practical faith. He says, I've long admired the grand, historic, and interdenominational vision of Beeson Divinity School. I have loved Beeson's commitment to mentoring students, so I'm delighted that I can now help strengthen the mission of Beeson. So I'll try and post the link to this later. I wanted to just briefly show there at sanford.edu, and then the Beeson Divinity School is attached to them. And I haven't read through this, but I just saw they focus on the fact that they are interdenominational, so they're not all Methodists. We are evangelical, they say. We are personal. And then they talk about their curriculum. I looked at their directory for a bit and looked at who they have on staff there. And I knew a couple of names, sort of, but I am not an academic, and so I didn't know a lot of these names as I went through. So anyway, I hope to learn more about seminaries in time because they are hugely influential in what a denomination that requires seminary experience is going to experience. The other thing kind of attached to this, Wesley Biblical Seminary, their president stepped down a few months ago, and they finally picked one that we know, Andy Miller III, who has done an interview with me, and I've done an interview with him. More to the story is his podcast. Very affable guy, came out of the Salvation Army. Here was the official announcement just a couple days ago. Dr. Andy Miller III has been unanimously elected president of Wesley Biblical Seminary. Chairman David Chandler announced Miller's selection today on behalf of the board, making Miller the 9th permanent president in the seminary's 50-year history of developing trusted leaders for faithful churches. Dr. Miller previously served as dean and vice president of academic affairs. Learn more and read the full announcement here. I should have just had the full announcement. I didn't realize there was a full announcement. So I guess I'll have both of these links. That's him and his lovely family. He and his I've seen his family's all musical. We're friends on Facebook, obviously. And for Christmas, they'll do fundraising for Salvation Army outside of the source, and they all play like brass instruments. And so it's just a wonderful thing to watch a family that likes each other and can play music together, and they love the Lord together. That's the most important thing. So anyway, if you didn't know who Andy was, I think he's a great fit. I think he'll be great for that institution. Wesley Biblical Seminary was founded, I think, by Association of Independent Methodist people. You know, they're not a Global Methodist, obviously, but they and Beeson and several other seminaries are now positioning themselves to serve Global Methodist clergy, as they should, because the Global Methodist Church has a lot of momentum and it's huge already, and it's going to continue to do more and more. So I think it's a good, healthy competition between these different institutions where they're going to push each other to greatness, the thing that I just want to say to anybody connected to these institutions who watches or listens to me is just, I think the fundamental hermeneutic that students need to encounter on day one is, we're going to teach you how the Bible is true. We're going to teach you the strongest defenses for the Christian faith against a godless world. And there's nothing wrong with the seminary teaching what the world thinks, but it always needs to be so that you equip them to do battle against the world. And that's what United Methodist Seminaries royally failed at. And they made a point to break us so that there wasn't much left afterwards for most students. And that's the wrong way to do things. I really hope that these institutions apologetically, biblically, build up very strong warriors for Christ that are then going to turn the tide and once again spread scriptural holiness across the land. So we'll pray for them here in a little bit when we wrap up.